realizing.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to 360 Digit MG. This is our continuation series of interview preparedness, and we've been trying to address this in the perspective of different topics, interview questions, what are there, all right, and we've got feedback recently from a couple of participants about a couple of topics that need to be addressed in a little more detail. All right. So for that reason, we are going to be talking about the topic of network analytics, which is part of the unsupervised learning. All right. And we'll be discussing about the network analysis once again, which will be in little detail. All right. Okay. So I shall be using the presentation, and I shall also be sharing certain questions and interview questions that are appearing as part of that. So let me open that. Yeah, one moment. All right. So we shall now see this particular topic of network analysis. What I'll do is I'll spend about 5-10 minutes. All right. Spend about 5-10 minutes trying to understand about what it is. It just is a very fast recap, and then probably explain some nuances within that particular aspect. All right. So the introduction to network analysis, you must be aware why, what, and it will be a good idea if you could, you know, learn some more use cases of network analysis, and when you are being interviewed, okay, you can talk about it. And the cab aggregators is not doing very well, but we've had a lot of traction from the delivery boys. All right, not exactly the delivery boys, but the aggregators, the food app companies, wherein a lot of traction we have seen, all right, with reference to optimization of the routes. And in the during the peak of the pandemic, we were also having a lot of traction, a lot of inquiries were coming with reference to how optimally the pathological lab, the path lab person, the pathologist, because nowadays they are now expecting the pathologist to be traveling. So how can the pathologist walk around and provide the services of collecting samples, right? Because the fear factor was pretty high. And once people get used to a particular kind of service, they expect, all right, they expect the same kind of thing forever. All right. So therefore, you may want to read up about that scenario. All right, and do with that. So that's one essential part of it. All right, and let us continue. So apart from the basic measures of centrality, which is the degree centrality, which is the closeness centrality, the eigenvector centrality, and eigenvector centrality continuation of adjacency matrix and network edge listing. All right. Google page rank algorithm, betweenness centrality, and cluster coefficient. These are essentially the aspects that we look at. So this is predominantly what we have. All right. Now, there is also another aspect that they don't expect you to know much, but if you can know about it, it is all right. Let me just spell it out for you because it's little, the spelling is a little difficult. Yeah, I'll write it down here. All right. So knowing what the Dijkstra's algorithm is, all right, Dijkstra or Dijkstra, uh, it's not important the pronunciation. If you can figure it out, what is the pronunciation, it is good. But if you can do that, that is the another important thing. So the Dijkstra or Dijkstra's algorithm is the shortest path algorithm, or also called as the SPF algorithm. Now, obviously, this requires a little more detailed, study of the network analysis, which I wouldn't recommend you get into it. But it is better that if you understand the theory part of it to the extent that, um, you know, to the extent that you are aware. Now, for instance, whatever networks we have seen, all right, we have only looked at the networks as a single link. All right, we have looked at the network as a single link. We have not looked at the length of the network. So length 1, length 2, length 3, length 4, length 5. All right. So if I have to travel from, let us say, this particular location to this particular location, I have to travel to this node because I have no choice. Then should I go like this or should I go like this will depend on the shortest path. All right. Now, it is not so simple as I make it out to be. All right. So, but that is the fundamental behind the Dijkstra's algorithm. Okay. And among the available paths, we do that. So this is also another thing that I know words that is very nice to use is all right, the traveling salesman problem. All right, so that is another thing. Okay, so the objective of the traveling salesman problem and most of the optimization problems that we have is to ensure that if I have certain nodes, how is the path that I should take that all the nodes should be touched, and in the process the length that is covered totally is the minimum. All right, so this is something that we need to ensure. All right, because this is where the pathologist who's going to be working with the various people is going to, he needs to be, uh, the pathologist who's going to be traveling. Now, obviously, the pathologist's time is very important. So we cannot expect the pathologist to be, wasting time in traveling. So he should be given the optimal route by which he can visit maximum number of places and in the minimum distance time and the minimum distance taken. All right. So that is the principle behind it, the traveling salesman. So these two things is something that would be at least the theory part of it. If you can read up about it, that is that will be very, very nice. All right. Okay. Now, if you have done a project in the network analysis, then obviously try to explain about that particular network analysis project. And obviously one of the things that they are going to be asking is with reference to the Google page ranking, because that is something that interests everybody. All right. So the one aspect that we have seen as part of the Google page ranking is with the with reference to simply the hyperlink. All right. Now, what are the other aspects that account for the Google page ranking? All right. Which is definitely not part of the network analysis. As part of the network analysis, yes, the hyperlinks is a measure of why a particular page ranking is higher or lower. All right. And then we have to move on to that particular stage. We will explain about that particular thing. But the page ranking is more of an SEO, is more of digital marketing. So obviously they don't expect you to know all those aspects, but definitely a little bit of theory, if you can be aware, that will be definitely better. All right. Now, having discussed about this, let us go a little deep into the algorithms, the network analysis algorithms. We'll see that. Okay. So let me explain this with the code. Give me a moment. So one of the things that you must have, if you have attended the class, one of the things that you must have seen is when we were discussing the, one is the centrality measures, which is the in degree, out degree, etc. All right. The other most important measure is about the ranking. All right. Where is this? Just a minute. Yes, this particular algorithm that we are looking at, we're looking at the in the principle of page ranking, the explanation about damping. All right, the explanation about damping is something that is very important. Any idea why we have the damping as what it is? Yeah. Any idea what reason why we have the damping as it is? Just waiting for the chats to get updated. Okay, so let me answer this. Now, the page ranking or the ranking in the perspective of the um, Google page ranking, if you see this here, there is a concept of damping or D. All right. Now, this damping D, theoretically, with the experience of the people at Google, have been set to 0.85. But here in our airport scenario, we are putting it at 0.99. So, is it something that we are going to put 0.99 or close to 1? Ideally, the value should be close to 1 only for airports. All right. Or can it be put for anything else also? All right. So now you need to have somebody were to ask, can I come up with this page ranking algorithm for a particular traveling salesman problem? Suppose a particular salesman is traveling and there are various locations. Now, which is that one center where he probably because we want to set up a nodal point, there is this particular state or a particular district where the salesman travels regularly. So where should we put our go down where we can have all the stocks available so that when the salesman is traveling, he can visit that go down in the most convenient way. So automatically that particular locality within that particular district has to be the one that has the highest ranking. Now, what is the value of damping will you put for such a scenario? Now, this is a hypothetical question. Now, we've learned in the airlines example that the damping is set at, we want to keep the damping close to 1 rather than keep it any other value. So that is why I took the value 0.999. Reason being that when a person is in an airport with an intention of traveling by flight, so we are not looking at the person traveling at the airport in the airport example, we're looking at the flights traveling. So if there is an aircraft sitting at a particular airport, that aircraft will fire up, will start and fly to only of the to any one of those chartered routes. It cannot travel on uncharted routes. It cannot travel on a route that is not defined by that airport. So therefore, the option that we have wherein the probability of a particular person choosing an entirely random page. Now, what is 1 minus d? All right, is the probability that someone doesn't click on the link but jumps instead to a random page. Therefore, d is the probability that somebody chooses one of the links. Okay, so what is going to happen is in the web page scenario, if I have two hyperlinks, a person sitting on this page has three options. The three options are option 1, choose this page, option 2, choose this hyperlink, option 3, anything else. Now the option 3, all right, is given by this probability 1 minus d. In an airport, for a particular aircraft, all right, for a particular aircraft, for it to go to any other route than the routes already defined is 0. It cannot travel anywhere. Therefore, 1 minus d has to be 0. But the whole problem with having this particular measure 1 minus d as 0 will collapse the entire thing. So therefore, what we do is we put this value theoretically to be close to 0 and not equal to 0 so that mathematically it is significant. All right. So that is the reason. So in an airport case, all right, in an airport case, the flight or the 1 minus d value is close to 0 or the d value is close to or almost equivalent to 1, that is 0.9999. That is what we are going to put it here. Now, in the case of a traveling salesman, what should be the d value? Should it be similar to the airport 0.999 or can it be anything? Now, it makes sense. We may have defined certain routes for a traveling salesman. All right. Now, if a particular node, wherein let us say this is where our godown is, a salesman he'll be having some stocks in his bag, and then he's going to distribute across various locations. He's going to travel from one location to other location also. Then he'll have other locations. And we may have some predetermined routes. For instance, your house is near a particular node, so that is where you rest. So when you get up in the morning, you take that particular node first. Then if you are not having stocks, you go to the go down, which is nearest to you. Then from there, you have certain routes. Then you go to here, then go here, then go here, then go here. Like, I mean, the objective should be to not to touch the node more than once. If you're entering the node, you exit it from that node. It should not be the case that you go, come back, you go, you come back, you go, you come back, you go, you come back. This is a very poor example of the traveling salesman example. So in this particular scenario, when I have the outward connections from a particular node which he can choose from, all right, one day he can choose here and go like this. One day he can choose and go like this, whatever. I can have the d value set to a value less than 0.999 because there can be scenarios wherein though he has been defined that you choose any one of these four and from these four you then choose go like this, then go like this, then go like this, then go home. So you start from your home, you come here, if you were to put it in the perspective. So this is point A, the home. From home, you come to the go down. Then from the go down, you go to another place. From there, you go to another place. From there, you go to another place. From there, you go to another place and go home. This is a very, very crude example. Now, when a person comes here, he can decide to go like this, then go like this, then go like this, then go like this and go home. I mean, that is a choice on a particular day. But the optimized route will be defined by the traveling salesman problem route. However, the traveling salesman on a particular day may decide to go to an entirely different location after visiting the go down for some special cases, meaning an entirely different jumps instead to a random place. All right. So we can have the d value less than 0.99, but definitely it is not going to be totally random. It is going to be planned. Therefore, it need not be close to 1. It can be close to 0.9 or 0.95 or 0.98 or whatever. All right. So that is something that you may want to remember when you are extrapolating the Google page ranking example for probably a traveling salesman problem or let us say a bus route. All right. A bus, when it is traveling, may be assigned a different route on a certain particular day because it is on the road and it can choose on a random occasion. It can probably go somewhere else. All right. Or a bus may have, let us say, a stop. All right. Another case of the bus route is if a bus is operating, there is a bus operating from A to B via C. All right. So A, C, B, it is operating. And there is a bus, there is one bus, and there are multiple buses operating in this particular route. Now, it may so happen that one day that in the bus, it is full. All the passengers have booked tickets for B directly. So therefore, the bus may decide to take a bypass and not touch C and go to B with the consent of the passengers, knowing pretty well that if I even go to C, I will not be able to take more passengers because my bus is full. Am I communicating? Now, this is something which a hopping flight, if you have a hopping flight from, let us say, location A to C, which goes via B, even if your flight is full from A to B, and all the passengers from A to B are going to A to C, you cannot change your route. Therefore, is going to be pretty high. All right. So that is an important aspect that one must remember when you're doing the Google page ranking. All right. Now, coming back to it, the other aspect that some of the participants have asked for the explanation to be given is with reference to the practical explanation of betweenness centrality. Betweenness centrality and closeness centrality. All right. Betweenness centrality and closeness centrality, what is the practical application? The ease of communication, both of them can be explained with the ease of communication. So in a closeness centrality, you can intuitively explain that the objective of the measure is how easily a particular node is able to communicate with all the other nodes with a limited number of connections. All right. So a particular node which is in the middle and connected to so many nodes is having the highest number of closeness centrality because it is able to communicate to every other node with just one link. Whereas all the other nodes in the periphery, let us say a star network, if you have one in the middle and like a spider network, the body is the one node and all the legs are this thing. The legs wanting to communicate with the other will have a lower closeness centrality because they are having to connect to the central point, and then from the central point it has to go. So there can be, you can also explain this with signal processing as a loss of signal can be there. This is of course the closeness centrality. Betweenness centrality on the other hand is the importance of a particular node in with respect to how many people are using it for their communication channel. So it automatically implies that the betweenness centrality is makes sense only for nodes which are having two or more connections. Nodes which have less than two connections or one connection alone, their betweenness centrality is going to be zero. Now we have seen this example here. If you look at this particular scenario here, all the nodes in the periphery, all right, all the nodes in the periphery, all right, even in fact there are two connections, but still this is zero. So all the nodes in the periphery have betweenness zero. So the objective is, if it is not part of an internal network, the betweenness centrality is going to be zero, and therefore we are not interested in that. Now coming back to the statement I made with reference to how many people are using that specific node for their communication channel, which is explained very well with the example that we have here. All right. So intuitively we can explain that it is 4, but you cannot obviously draw a diagram and show that, you know what, like this you cannot show a diagram and tell them, you know what, this is what is happening. That is obviously not possible. So therefore what you need to do is you need to explain to them what is betweenness centrality, and betweenness centrality, like I said, is the path on which a particular node lies and which is frequented by the communication channel amongst the various other nodes. All right. So that is the explanation that we can have. All right. Okay. Now, this was with reference to the the network analysis, and obviously you need to remember that while the topics that is covered as part of our curriculum talks predominantly about the strength of the node, we also have measures of network analysis that can talk about the strength of the path or strength of the network as a whole, a particular path. So that is where we bring in the concept of the thickness of the route. And the thickness of the route is defined by the number of paths that exist on that particular node. And this is most frequently explained by the traffic that we have, all right, on a particular highway, or the air traffic particular route that between two important airports, for instance Hyderabad and Delhi, all right, or the four metros being connected to each other in our country, however they have it. So all those things are how many flights that operate between this versus cannot be treated as a single link between Hyderabad, because Hyderabad to Delhi is not the same as probably Hyderabad to Vijayawada. So we need to have a different. You cannot simply treat it as a one link operation. We'll also have to. So that is where rather than the node, we have the entire network and the thickness of the network. So those things are also something that you may want to please look into it and try to figure out what are the things. And the people who have not had an opportunity to work on the live projects related to network analysis will definitely have to learn about all that. All right. So let me now, you know, uh, take you to another topic at hand. Where is my? All right. So we will now look at topic of association rules and recommender system as part of it, and let us look at some of the interview questions which are frequently asked as part of it. So there is something called as FP growth algorithm. So you may have learned about the a priori algorithm, but what is the FP growth algorithm is something that people will ask you. So an FP growth algorithm is yeah. Where is this? One moment. All right. So the FP growth algorithm is simply frequent patterns growth algorithm. All right. So that is a different way of mentioning what we know about the a priori algorithm. So one shouldn't be very scared. One shouldn't be drawing a blank when somebody asks you, okay, what have you worked with FP association rules? Okay, have you worked with FP growth algorithm? So you should be able to say yes, a priori algorithm is the FP growth algorithm, which is what we have worked on. Okay, so All right. So that is one thing. Then what are the techniques that are used to improve the efficiency of an a priori algorithm? If you have an a priori algorithm, what do you do to improve the efficiency? All right. So one of the methods is that you can reduce the number of transactions. And to reduce the number of transactions, you can tune the a priori algorithm with a slightly higher support and a slightly higher confidence levels. All right. Otherwise, there'll be a excessive amount of rules that is coming in, and therefore the sanctity of or the association, the actual measure of association will be totally lost. So reduction of um, transaction. You can also go for some partitioning methods, all right, of the data in such a way that based on certain criteria, for instance, you can use simple clustering algorithms to partition the data into various clusters and then apply these. Ultimately what happens is the number of data points gets slightly reduced, and then you can apply the a priori algorithm to these various clusters and come up with different types of association. So that is another thing that is possible as part of the association rules. All right. Now, the next question oftentimes asked, because digitization and in the future, obviously, and currently also, the online recommender systems is something that people are speaking or talking a great deal about it. All right. So they may want to, discuss about what is content-based recommendation. All right. So content-based recommendation is it it is a method by which the prediction of scores for all unrated items of the users. All right. So the basic idea is that we filter it. All right. Excuse me. Yeah. The basic idea is we filter it. All right. On some of the other features, non-related features of that. So the main answer is that if there are certain aspects that are not rated, then how can we do the recommendations for them? It refers to a system to predict the scores for unrated items of the users. The basic idea is content filtering is such that each item have some features that already exist, and on those features we do the rating. All right, so that is content based filtering or content based recommendation is what it is. So there is another question which another participant has sent across, which was something in recommendation. What happens during with the featureized matrix factorization? All right, recommendation items using featureized matrix factorization. All right, now give it a minute if anybody wants to answer, and then probably I'll give the answer. So this particular featureized matrix factorization is simply a fancy word for people-to-people recommender system, which is basically providing personalization. All right. So featureized matrix factorization essentially means the various features that are attributing a particular product. You are going to be taking those features in relation to various users who have used them and rated them, etc. And those features in lieu of a specific user, we are taking it and doing it. So essentially, so using featureized matrix factorization is basically for providing personalizations. Okay, so that is one aspect of it. why do you like association rules? And I'm jumping between association rules and recommender systems. So why do you like association rules? What is it that is very interesting with reference to association rules is a question. What is your thought about it? Okay. So the interesting aspect is that we don't have to pick one aspect of a particular attribute or a tuning parameter. All right, your association rules have multiple parameters. For instance, for instance, support, confidence, lift, conviction, etc. You can choose the best of all the parameters that are part of it for the purpose of making the choosing your association, a measure of association. You don't have to really, in the choice of one, lose out the other. When you try and compare this, in fact, if you want to answer it in little more detail, if you try to answer it in the concept of sensitivity and specificity, now it's always a trade-off. All right, you cannot really get very high specificity, very high sensitivity, but in association rules, with these three or four parameters, you can actually get something that is the best of the best of the best of all the three or all the four. So that is something that is very, very interesting about the association rules, that we can take that particular aspect. All right. So that is something that we saw. All right. Now, yeah. So let us look at some more within the unsupervised itself, some more such examples in unsupervised. Yeah. Okay. Now, there is also something in the association rules which is called as the absolute versus relative support. Okay. Now, what is the difference between absolute and relative support? Now, these are things that you'll be able to know if you attend more interviews or if you go deeper into the subject. So, anyway, so absolute is the minimum support which we have with the count. All right, the minimum support that we have with the count is the absolute support, and relative support is the minimum support, which is a threshold value. All right, so threshold value, which is more of a percentile number. So basically, the method of measuring. So if I'm going to talk about the absolute support, I want so many values. All right, I want so many cases. I want 3,000 cases. That is look more like a. I want 3,000. If I'm saying out of whatever the support is, if I'm going to do that, it is 3,000 cases. Now that 3,000 cases may be out of 5,000, out of 50,000, out of 5 million. It doesn't matter. I want 3,000 cases to be able to go and treat this particular scenario or take those particular cases. All right. So they have given an absolute support, which is a count, whereas relative support is of a proportion value or a percentage value. So in relation to the total, what is the value? All right. So that is if you get into the formula of it. All right. So the absolute threshold This is the absolute support. All right. And if you look at the relative support, which we have learned, this is the relative support. This is what we have seen. All right. All right. Now, memory-based learning is something that you must have learned, but what about memory-based collaborative filtering? All right. What is memory-based collaborative filtering is something that you may be sometimes asked. All right. It is pretty similar to, the memory-based learning. Okay. So basically what we are going to do is we are going to divide it into two main sections: the user item filtering of a particular user and similar users based on the similarity of ratings. And then we have another thing, which is the item based filtering, and find the users which like the items. All right. So what we are essentially doing is we are doing both. We are trying to do the user based collaborative filtering and the item based collaborative filtering, both the scenarios for a particular case. All right. First is we are trying to find the nearest user. All right. After we have found the nearest user, among the nearest users, amongst the various products that the person has not purchased, we are then going to perform item based collaborative filtering within that subset. So obviously the bigger activity would be the user based collaborative filtering is to find out all the people. Let us say you have maybe about 300 people who are very similar or closely similar to a particular user who's currently online. So among those 300 people, what are all the products that they have bought? All right, and the person has not bought, we can probably do then among those 300 a smaller subset, the item based collaborative filtering, and then show the best of the best rather than do that. So that is what is known as memory based filtering. Okay. Okay. So I'll take up one more. I'll give you one more question. I'm just I'm not trying to choose which is the best one in this particular topic. So why is there a problem of diversity when we are dealing with collaborative filtering? All right. Why is there a problem of diversity when we are dealing with collaborative filtering? Okay. So one of the reasons of the problem of diversity in the collaborative filtering is it is purely based on a very similarity measure. So they cannot go for a long historical precedence. All right. And therefore, oftentimes the recommendation is kind of pretty similar, and all right, they are, because they are based on the ratings and sales, all right, they cannot be usually recommend products with some historical significance. All right, you have probably bought this 2 years back, so probably now it makes sense to buy something more. So those kind of diversity is something that is not there. I mean, one of the examples that I generally talk of is if the recommendation system could find out that I have bought a refrigerator, a single door refrigerator, and if it recommends to me after about maybe 2 years, if it has the historical thing, that maybe it's time to buy a double door or a full door, separate ice box kind of a refrigerator, or a big size refrigerator. If now is the time to do that, I think that will be a better touch rather than having only looking at the recent things. So that is something which would be preferred. All right. So obviously, the popularity of the products, if you're going to be using the user preferences, the popularity of the products is one of the primary motives for the user-based collaborative filtering, and therefore we are simply pushing very popular products amongst the people, and therefore it definitely lacks the sense of diversity. All right, so that is another aspect which we have with reference to the collaborative filtering suffers from the diversity problem. All right. So that is why in collaborative filtering, it is always a mix of both user-based and item-based collaborative filtering. All right. And memory-based collaborative filtering is a solution wherein we do both. All right. You are all aware already, we have discussed in great detail about what is user-based collaborative filtering and what is item-based collaborative filtering. All right. So we can take that into consideration. All right. So user ratings, item-based collaborative filtering, you can simply straight away say item-based collaborative filtering is another way of association rules. All right. So once that is often the things that the interviewer expects, it's another way of association rules. All right. And though it is not clearly defining the measures of support and confidence, but effectively that is what the item-based collaborative filtering is doing. And user-based collaborative filtering is simply finding the closest person to a particular user or a group of persons who are closest to a particular user purely based on the buying behavior of different products or services. So that's essentially what we have. All right. So on that note, we'll wrap up for today's session and connect back. We'll please keep watching our YouTube channel. We'll be keep updating you about the various sessions that are happening, and we will share them with you. Thank you so much.